G'day guys, it's Gordon here from Guardians of Freedom. I'm just going to quickly try and capture your minds for 2 minutes because that's all I know that your attention spans can hold. And I know that we live in this age where everyone's running around, they're so busy and they're so fast. So I'm just going to pull some shit out of my ass. I'm going to rant and rave quickly and just ram it down your throat in 2 minutes. Sorry, I can't do it, guys. I can't do things like that, and I definitely won't. Okay, in fact, I think it's a perfect intro to the topic we're in, which is social conditioning. And I know that we live in this world where everything's fast and we don't have time and our attention spans have become small. And I can't do that. And I'm going to ask you guys to join me for a discussion. And I don't feel you can have a full coverage of any topic with a 2 minute video or a 3 minute video. So we are living one of the conditionings is the dumbing down of society, and I think we all know that. So I don't know why we are so sort of jumping into this 2 minute video thing. I'm not going to do it. All right, so let's get into the topic, guys, and I hope you guys can hang with me for a bit. I think this is going to be an interesting topic. On the last video I made, we started talking about New World Order conditioning. We looked at, from a rational point of view, I guess, what the conditioning has done to us, including in the movement. That basically the conclusion was that the conditioning that's affecting us still has stopped us from being able to hold an effective movement, being able to unite and taking the right actions. Now, in the last video, I talked about some of my spiritual beliefs. And effectively, in conclusion, my spiritual belief is that humanity has to go through this tough period, this difficult period, in order to return to what we truly are, our true human essence. So what we're going to talk about today is the actual methodology and the strategies that are being used as part of this New World Order social conditioning that's been taking place for a long time. So I'm just going to reiterate what the importance of this topic is, and basically if you can't shed the New World Order conditioning, you're going to hell. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not religious, and I'm not coming at you with any of those sort of religious connotations, and I respect all those who are religious. I'm not making fun of that, but you're not going to help. But what's going to happen instead is we are simply stuck where we are. And the social programming is definitely what's stopping us from uniting, acting effectively. And I just want to take this time as well to remind everyone what's at stake here. It's your life is at stake, the quality of your life, your future life, your children's lives, their children, every generation after that, and humanity as we know it. So I'm going to ask you guys to please open your minds and hearts, and I'm going to make my disclaimer again, which, I'm not coming here to judge or condemn anybody. Personally, I am asking people to review themselves. I am maybe criticizing behaviors as we go through this series, and I separate that from the person. Okay, I think that's important. I'm not judging on you are a bad person, but we've got to be able to identify these behaviors within ourselves. And the other disclaimer I'm going to make is, look, I come to my conclusions through a lot of reading, a lot of research, a lot of thinking, a lot of philosophizing, but they are my beliefs, and my beliefs are always up for being dissected and looked at and scrutinized. And I'm not coming here saying I know everything, so it either makes sense or it doesn't. But don't come at me with an argument that doesn't make sense. So if you come back at me and go, "No, I don't believe that," and I say why, well, if there's no real response, then that's not really sufficient. So the first question I guess we've got to ask ourselves is it actually possible to create or control culture? In other words, to create that sort of social conditioning. Is that actually possible? And the answer to that, in short, is yes, 100%. There's a whole science to it. It's being done right now at any major business, any major corporation. I worked in the corporate world for quite some time, and I was part of working with the human resource team on establishing cultures, on changing culture, on creating the kind of culture we wanted. So in business, the human resource management sector, it's a study on itself, okay, and that's a fact, and it can be done on a larger scale. So that's the next question: how and can it be done on a larger scale? So I think a good place to start to answer that question is you need to do your homework on what's going on in the world. Okay, that's for another video. Okay, I'm going to be putting a video together on who, how, and what. Who's behind what's going on? What are they trying to achieve? How do they achieve it, and why? Okay, but in a nutshell, when we look at the every country has a common denominator, and that's your central bank. Every country has now got one. Okay, and it wasn't always like this. Okay, now those central banks effectively control the countries. They control the political system, and they control everything under it. Okay, and placing people in the right place, it becomes like a corporation, like a structure. So it's not a case of everybody's in this conspiracy, but basically, if you control the top will tell what the bottom does, and they're everywhere now. So if you can imagine a large company across the entire world, that's how you control culture across the entire world. So I'm just going to quickly jump back to my notes. I call them the central bankers, and that's all I'm going to leave it at. And there's no need to get into anything else, but always remember this quote: if you control the money, you control the nation. Okay? I can't be under someone else's programming. I think a lot of people might be thinking like that. Well, even the awake people are definitely, I know you guys out there will be going, nah, I'm not under programming. Okay? And what I'm going to say to that is the New World Order, they're very intelligent. Okay, they're absolute masters of manipulating normal human psychology. It's done very subtly, and a lot of us don't even realize that some of our beliefs and our behaviors are actually New World Order programming. Some of us see some of the programming out there, and we can identify it and point at it. But we hang on to the ones that we feel good about, that feel good to us, or maybe even they serve us in some way. Okay, so it is a major issue still, I believe, within our movement, our awake movement. I think we kind of pick and choose, and I see this all the time where I see people actually like literally pointing out oh yeah, that's New World Order programming, and that same person will later put a post up which is full New World Order ideology. And in this video, I'm not going to actually identify the ideologies yet, because I just want to get people to start thinking first about the methods and those kind of things, so that they don't get triggered yet. Okay, because I'll trigger you later. I guarantee it. I will trigger you later, but hopefully not. Hopefully, I'm going to try and take a rational, calm approach into it. And as I say, where I'm coming from, guys, all I want to do is win. That's it. I have no agenda. I don't make money. I don't do any of those things in the movement, and I just simply would like us to get to a place where we are able to win. So I need to get back over those notes quickly. So that's something for us to consider. Like a lot of us that are awake and go, well, is there possible other programming that I might be under? Now, a good question I got asked at one of the barbecues that we run. We run barbecues, and this was down in Brisbane, community barbecues, and one of the ladies there, when we were discussing, she asked me, she goes, why do you think that we are awake and not the others, the sheep, right? And I don't use that word, the sheep, but she asked me this question, and I responded to her and I said, look, I give the example that I believe herd mentality is actually normal. It's across many animals, and mostly mammals, but also other animals. They generally will follow a pack leader or a alpha within that herd or pack. And those people are born that way. The alpha dogs, for example, I learned how to choose a dog when you're buying a dog for your home. And the way you choose that dog is to go to the breeder's property, ask them to keep it inside the enclosure, like a fenced enclosure, ask them to open the gate. Okay, and those first couple of dogs, it's normally one, maybe two, but one dog will come straight out of that gate. Okay, no fear at all. He or she, mostly it's gonna be a he. Okay, he's gonna come flying out of that gate. That dog is an alpha dog. He's not afraid of anything. He thinks for himself, and he'll come straight out. The middle pack, maybe there might be another one or two like that that'll be close behind alpha. The middle pack, those are the dogs they recommend for households. The ones at the very end are fear-driven dogs. They're actually potentially a bit of a handful because they're the dogs that are more likely to fear bite. You got to do a lot of work with them around the fear. You can solve that, but they recommend the middle pack. They're the most easy. Those front dogs that come out of the gate, I have one. That's my current dog, Rocco. He is not easy to train. My female dog's so easy to train. She's always enthusiastic for training. He can't. I thought he was not bright when I was younger, but I realized he just looks at me like, I don't know about that, bro. I'll have a think about that. I'm not sure if I want to do that. So you are working with a dog that has a much more strong mentality, more stubborn, and but he's an awesome dog, and I guarantee nobody's coming into this house. He doesn't need me there to tell him commands. He's an alpha dog. He's born that way, okay? And a lot of us are born that way as well. So, sorry guys, a phone call coming in. So when we look at what's going on in the world, that's what's happened. You've got your normal, natural born, I guess, alpha dogs or leaders, and some of the other people out there are just following normal herd mentality. Okay, and there are other factors involved in that, and some of the other factors would be that there are some of us in society who have always been outsiders to society, and so for them it was fairly normal to just think for themselves because they've always been doing that. So they may not necessarily be those, sort of alpha dogs. And then you've got intelligence, which we saw during the pandemic. It's not a major factor because a lot of people with high level of intelligence still succumb to cognitive dissonance. Okay, now cognitive dissonance is one of the major factors that they are able to use to program. But this is the herd mentality is one of the core things that they latch onto in terms of being able to program people. Herd mentality is very normal, guys. In fact, the human beings on a psychological basis, it's very high in their needs, is the need to fit in. It actually is one of the factors that is part of our extremely good survival instincts. It comes from our our need to thrive. So the fact that we need to fit in helped us to work cohesively as a society and grow bigger and bigger into larger communities, which again aided in our success as a species. So as I said, these people are so intelligent, they harness these normal natural needs and behaviors and they manipulate them. Okay, so we're starting to understand how they use these things against us, normal things, absolutely normal things. Now, I'm just going to quickly mention the New World Order's been around for a long time. Okay, so some people would trace it back to Rome, the Roman Empire. Some people go back to Babylon. Okay, I personally like to stay around the Roman Empire because I think you can get a good level of evidence around that. The Roman Empire was effectively the beginning of the modern day New World Order, and I won't get too deep into that. That's for another video where I'll explain how that slowly transitioned from the Roman Empire to where we are today. But the indoctrination, the conditioning, social conditioning, it started from back then. Okay, and it's absolutely ramped up, I would say, since the 1950s. Now, back then, the way that the programming, the methods they used were written texts, um, or force, control of belief systems, and word of mouth. And I'm just going to talk quickly about a very famous campaign that was run by King Charlemagne of the Kingdom of the Franks, which became France, which was through Northern Europe, Convert or Die, which was a campaign which involved a murderous campaign, torturous, mutilation, you name it, to get the people to convert into a particular religion or ideology, which is modern day Christianity. Now, I'm not taking away from Christianity in any way, from original Christianity, okay? But that's something we'll talk about in the series as well. It's definitely something that was done and manipulated at some point along the way, and that King Charlemagne period was a good example of where it started. So I'm going to keep moving along, guys. So that was by force, right? Now, since the end of World War II, we've seen an acceleration of the social conditioning. And I think, particularly for a lot of people that woke up in 2020, because of the scamdemic, they may not have been aware of these things before that. And the main method is through the TV, the television, and radio, which was just starting to get more widespread. Before that, it was newspapers, propaganda. Okay, propaganda is basically using a bit of truth and convincing people of certain facts. The 1950s saw the creation of the Council of Foreign Relations in the United States, and they were actually tasked, together with the CIA, with creating the culture they wanted American citizens to have. So they have, from the ground up, built the culture that they want Americans to have. Now, TV shows, movies were the main way to do this. And if you look at the TV shows from, say, the 1950s, we look at the values, we look at the behaviors, and then we look at the TV shows today. Whew, drastic difference, yeah, massive difference. We've gone from a sort of more of a wholesome place to, I don't even know what we can call, like, the sickness that we see on TV now. It's some pretty sick stuff. Now, I actually watch TV shows that I don't like, and people will say to me, why are you watching that show that you don't like? Because I watch it because I'm studying it. I'm studying the indoctrination. I'm studying what they're trying to put into people's minds. So I won't get into the shows. I'll save them for each topic we get into. But there's certain shows I watch and I've seen it. I've gone, oh, so this is what they're doing. And this is from like the 1990s. I started getting onto this stuff. And in the 2000s, definitely I could see what they were doing with the changes in, the culture through the TV shows and things like that. We've moved from a culture, effectively they want a dumb culture. Okay, and that's what we are now. So that's why I'm encouraging people to snap out of this, like, I need a 2-minute video thing. Expand your attention spans. Expand them. So the US joined the UN in 1945, interestingly. Okay, and that's when, after the World War II era, it was massive focus on culturing people through the CIA and the Council of Foreign Relations. Okay, I will be giving the specific examples for each specific type of programming, and I will show you evidence of it as we go through. So the Fed Reserve was created in December 23, 1913 in the United States. That is a date to note, and I'll be talking about this in the video which I cover on World War I and World War II, but that's right before World War I. Okay, so effectively they needed to do that to get the United States to do what they wanted, which was join World War I, which was all part of this New World Order rollout, which I'll talk about in the other series, because it's nothing to do with this, but relevant. All right, so what are the specific strategies they use? And I call this one monkey see, monkey do. Okay, the human being is simple in many ways and complex in other ways, but we are very simple. We see something and we'll replicate it, especially if we see that replicated over and over and over again in front of us. Um, Literally, the human monkey sees and the human monkey will do. And I'll try and give you guys some examples. I'll give you some examples here. So, okay, tattoos. Why is everyone running around with tattoos now? Everyone. It's so common. And I have two. Okay, so I'm not getting up people with tattoos. Look, I probably got mine before they were trendy, before they were cool. Um, Now, again, I'm not getting up people who have tattoos, but why? Okay, why does everyone speak a certain way? Certain words become cool in the time. Like, I'll give you an example. In the 1980s, people were saying words like, totally rad, things like that. And then now you move the young guys. I don't know what they even say nowadays. I need to shut that off. That's Facebook going away. So we're just gonna quickly get in and shut it off. No more Facebook interrupting. So yeah, that's another good example. The kind of lingo that we use. Where does it come from? Okay, why do we dress a certain way? Why is certain clothing like everybody? If you ask people these questions, they will think they know the answer, and they will say, "Oh no, I like this shirt." But the reality is that idea was put into their minds from somewhere else, or why they like tattoos. They'll come up and they'll say, "Oh no, it looks cool, and this tattoo means this, it means that." But the reality is that the tattoos and everything else were put into their mind, and that was done using celebrities, TV shows, etc. And monkey saw, monkey did. Okay, again, so beards is another one. Okay, why does it, every guy now out there? And again, I'm not giving you guys shit. I'm not, but it's it's a trendy thing. So that comes in. Okay, don't shave your beards and get rid of tattoos. Just enjoy it. I'm just talking about the principle here of where it came from. These people, most people think that the ideas are their own. Why they dress a certain way, it's been implanted into you. Okay, this is how they work with the other things that matter more, the isms, and maybe some of you guys are already starting to think. And I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments if you want to start telling me what some of the different conditionings are. So I'm talking about a whole range of isms that have been used to make us what they want us to be today. So the next thing I want to talk about is the power of belief. Okay, the power of belief is so powerful. Okay, I used to work in mental health, and what I would find is certain mental health conditions, particularly anxiety and depression, mostly related to what people believed, either about themselves or the world around them or someone in their life, right? So if they believed that they were not worthy or they were not, you know, sufficient, it would lead to anxiety generally, okay, or depression. Um, Now, obviously, there are some more serious mental health conditions that may have less to do with what you believe, but definitely with these ones, once I was able to work with people to get them to understand or get them to change what they believed about themselves or the world around them, you would see that anxiety would literally disappear. Literally, just go boom, disappear. Once you get somebody to believe in themselves, and on that note, I'll mention Anthony Robbins. Okay, some people don't particularly like Tony Robbins. I do. I think he's a cool guy. I enjoy hearing some of his stuff. And what I would say to people, like, he's a self-help guru, in case people don't know, right? But effectively, Tony Robbins, what he does, he was a sales rep before he became a self-help guru. And he's so good at what he does because he's such a good salesman. And what he does is he sells people the belief in themselves. Okay, that's because he's such a good sales rep. So if you watch what he does, that's what he's doing. He's selling to people through different methods that they are great. Okay, and then they believe that. Once the minute they believe it, it's like that, bang, it's like a switch. Everything changes. That's how powerful the power of belief is. And yeah, by the way, Tony Robbins was one of a few celebrities who actually called out COVID. So I respect Anthony Robinson for doing that, because there's a fair bit at risk there. Now, if you can control what people believe about themselves or the world around them, that is power, absolute power. Okay, and the reason I say that is your beliefs become your thoughts, that becomes your attitude, your behavior, your actions, and your words, right? So this is so important to understand, because quite often, if you trace some of these beliefs back to where they originated from, they came from New World Order stuff. Okay, and that's what I'm going to be doing in this series. I will be showing you guys in detail with evidence on these various isms. Okay, and some of you might probably already think about, might guess what some of the isms are that have created these fake beliefs. Okay, so if you can plant fake beliefs into people, okay, they're going to basically be that. So you are what you believe. That's what I've come to understand. You basically are what you believe. So if you believe you're stupid, you'll be stupid. If you believe you're not capable, you'll be not capable. Okay. Now, obviously within reason, but once you start believing these things, that I am capable, I'm smart, you see people start changing. Okay, and that's self-esteem stuff, but it's also like we can see this now. I might as well mention this, like with the transgender stuff, that if people are actually allowed to believe certain things because they're getting planted these beliefs into them. So this is why I say the movement, I see a lot of people aware of some of the indoctrination because it wasn't affecting them, all right, and maybe it doesn't have a beneficial effect on them. So clearly with this one, we can see now there's suddenly an increase in children who identify as transgender because these beliefs have been implanted into them. Okay, but there are others in the 1980s, 90s, 70s, 60s, 50s where beliefs were implanted into people. So then people started believing certain things, and that led to their attitudes, their behaviors, their words, their actions, and it's created us to become a non-cohesive society where we're butting heads instead of working together, because they've managed to use that narrative to well, it's a tribalism, isn't it? So that's one of the ways in which they work. It's using identity politics. You are this, you are that. It's all about belief. Okay, if you believe that, then you are that. If you don't believe that, then you're not that. It's so important. It's absolutely so important that people can wrap their heads around the idea of the power of belief, and that people have had beliefs planted into them. Okay, I'm just going to jump back a slide here because I went forward. So one of the ways they do this as well is they make people believe that that's what everyone else thinks. Right, so what they'll do is they'll say, like in the newspaper when COVID was running, that, oh, everybody can't wait to have the vaccine. So then everyone thinks that everyone wants to get the vaccine. So then they go, oh, everyone must want to get the vaccine. I think I mentioned it, but the greatest, one of the greatest in the human psychology needs is to feel that they fit in, which was part of aiding in the survival of our species. So you can manipulate that. You can manipulate people into going, they look around, okay? And you see that, like, if you are in a room, in a meeting or something like that, and you'll see if you put a topic up and you ask people a question, they'll kind of look at others to see who's putting their hands up most of the time, okay? Because they want to do what everyone else is doing. And again, if you can manipulate that, and now people can see this with COVID, but try and apply it to some of the other isms over time. Okay, and I'm going to be applying these things as we talk about these isms over time. Okay, but this is again one of the other methods, and obviously if you have the media under your control, you can really make people think that this is what everyone else believes. Okay, and they do it now with social media influencers. So let's keep going along, guys. So I want to talk about the Russian dog girl, okay, which is such a powerful evidence of the power of belief and maybe a bit of that monkey see, monkey do. There was a girl in a rural part of Russia that I believe she was living on a very isolated farm with her parents. This is from, I think, the mid 2000s, somewhere around there. And she had been abandoned, I think, or the parents may have passed away, died, or something like that. Anyway, she ended up living with the farm dogs. And this girl, literally, when they found her, I think she had been there for years like that. She survived, which was miraculous, thanks to the dogs. But she thought she was a dog, and she would bark and yelp and growl and everything else like a dog. And that is how strong this power of belief is that she believed she was a dog. And it took her years of training with humans to get her to be normal, or well, be a human again. Um, so that is literally what you can do with the power of belief. Okay, you can make someone, and like I said, with you've got people now identifying as cats and all kinds of stuff because they believe that the belief's been implanted. So really start thinking what beliefs have been implanted in us that have stopped us from being our normal human essence, our normal human being. If you have an objective look at it, you can see it straight away. Okay, and I will provide the evidence, guys, as we go through this series. So thanks for hanging. I know we're getting to 31 minutes, and I'm going to keep running through this. Now, one of the other methods they do is they recreate falsified versions of history to make people believe that humans are a certain way, which is in fact false. Okay, and we see this in the movies all the time. I'm not fun sometimes to watch movies because nowadays I find it hard to find a movie that's not filled with some kind of woke bullshit or some kind of mind control for whatever purpose it is. Okay, but effectively, this is a massive way to utilize propaganda and make people believe something that's just not true. So I love watching a lot of, I guess, medieval type movies, historical movies, and I'll often sit there and I'll go, that's no way that happened. People weren't like that at that time, right? And they'll implement like woke culture into some of these movies, and you go, that did not happen. Okay, and I'll just mention one for example. Like now you're seeing these medieval movies where it's all multicultural. Okay, it wasn't like that back then. Okay, there might have been here and there a few little things going on, and I won't mention some of the other isms, but I think a lot of the guys watching this are going to go, yeah, and they do this and make things fake, which didn't happen. Okay, so I'm not going to get into it. I kind of gave it away, but I won't name it in particular. But that's how they do it. That's one of the ways. Creating ideologies as well that may feel good. They may feel even honorable. They may feel like I'm doing the right thing here. So you've got to be aware of that as well. Some of these ideologies that they implement, they tap into the human being on the sort of what they consider left and right wing sort of values, which, as you guys may know, I don't believe in left or right wing, and I'm going to make that's part of the series talking about left versus right. That it's just completely, and I will prove with evidence how we're not one or the other. But what they do is they tap into that, and the left would be normally more empathetic, the right would be normally more competitive or aggressive sort of people, and then they will say you're in that camp and you're in that camp, and then they will exaggerate the ideologies where sometimes they get quite extreme. Now, if we look at the kind of benefits that, so people will feel good by, or they might feel like we're doing social justice here, we're doing the right thing. In some cases, so I always say there's a balance, right? There's a middle ground to every issue, to every argument. So in some cases, you do need to have some kind of social justice. It's just they push it, they use that as part of their agenda, and then people can't let go of it. Then you have that split. Okay, then you have that me versus you thing going on. Okay, and that's one of the things they do is they tie you into one camp or the other. Okay, so then they can pit you against each other, but they use these ideologies in a way that you feel that you're doing a righteous thing, that you're honorable, and it's both the left and the right. But somewhere in there is a middle balance. Okay, personal benefit sometimes comes out of this as well. And when I say personal benefit, that might be receiving benefits like compensation, or receiving pleasure, or importance, a feeling of importance, or power. Okay, and power is one of the most powerful drugs. Okay, it's been employed by communism and socialism forever, since it's been around. And we'll be talking about socialism and communism in this series as well. But once you get power, so the way the communists and the socialists work is effectively by identifying the segment of society that is disempowered or feels that they've been disempowered, and then providing them with power that they will never relinquish because it's too powerful. Okay, now just going back on that notion of our beliefs, one of the major problems that they've created with our belief system, and it's the way we are educated, right? So if you look at how we're actually educated in school, we've ended up with this very strange phenomenon where our beliefs are tied to our sense of personal worth or our personal value, right? And the way they do it in school is by giving you prizes and things like that for knowing things. So then you start getting this pride about my beliefs. My knowledge is me. So then your beliefs become you. Okay, they represent your ego, your who you are, your value, and that's so dangerous because you then cannot relinquish your current beliefs, even if you're presented with evidence. Okay, and this is not cognitive dissonance. This is a whole separate thing, because any change to your beliefs means you have to effectively then say to yourself, "Oh, I'm not as valuable as I thought I was." Okay, and this is not normal human behavior either, because it's just the way our education system works, and I don't believe that's by accident. So if we are able to separate the two, that our beliefs do not equate with our personal value as a human being, our sense of esteem, you are able to review those beliefs and not feel hurt while you do that. Otherwise you feel hurt, you feel a sense of attack. Oh no, I'm not worthy. But you can't reach wisdom if you can't continuously scrutinize beliefs and everything else. That's how you grow. So unfortunately we've gotten to that point. And the very first video I'm going to be doing is called The Age of Ego. Okay, now I quickly went over to ChatGPT to see what ChatGPT has to say about this topic. And I'm just going to quickly run through some of the things, because it's when we go through this, and I asked ChatGPT a particular question. I asked ChatGPT, let me get into where we are with ChatGPT. So I asked ChatGPT, what are some methods that would be used to brainwash or program an entire population? ChatGPT said there have historically been several methods used to influence, condition, or brainwash large populations, and it's done by shaping beliefs. emotions, and behaviors. Emotions. Okay, and this is why I'm saying to people in the movement, you've got to be aware of your emotions and be able to address your beliefs, or you will be stuck in that New World Order programming and you will be used. Okay, you'll be used by the New World Order agenda. Now, and it says often without people being fully aware of the process, they can be used by governments, corporations, media organizations, or other powerful groups. Here are some of the main ones. Now, when I was reading this, and I think you guys will find this to be the case, it sounds like the COVID-19 rollout plan. All right. So the first one, control of information, propaganda, repeated exposure to selective or biased information to reinforce specific beliefs, propaganda. Okay, we can see that through COVID. Now, what I ask then you guys who are awake to do is try and see through previous agendas what information was repeated exposure, okay, to reinforce specific beliefs. All right. I think we can quickly identify some woke culture here, but it happens on the right wing side too. Okay, as I said, they'll come at you from both sides. Censorship, suppression of restriction of opposing viewpoints. We saw that through COVID for sure, and I saw that through other agendas that were happening. Okay, where if you had a different viewpoint, you were cancelled effectively. Disinformation or misinformation, spreading false or misleading information to confuse or manipulate the public. Okay, now we can clearly see that in COVID, but again, apply it before. Start thinking about these things. Control of education. Framing history, science, or politics to fit a particular agenda. I just talked about the history stuff. Repetition and conditioning. Repetition of slogans, images, or key phrases in COVID. For the greater good, do the right thing. All communist manifestos, right? And they were repeated over and over again. Pavlovian conditioning, which is associating certain ideas with strong emotions, fear, pride, and shame. Okay, now I'm trying to keep this out, but I will talk about this one here. I'll talk about certain masculine traits have fallen under this associating certain ideas with strong emotions. So on the sort of certain things about traits of masculinity were shamed for men and feared for women, and that was driven from somewhere else. Okay, but people believed it, which then became their thinking, attitude, behavior, actions, words. All right. Social proof, creating the illusion that everyone believes this. I mentioned that conformity, which is, tapping on that need to fit in. Fear and emotional manipulation, fear mongering. Okay, exaggerating threats, real or perceived. All right, exaggerating threats, real or perceived, to create compliance. Okay, COVID-19 101. Us versus them narratives, creating an enemy to unite people under a cause. Now start thinking about this, creating an enemy to unite people under a cause. Today is the 28th of the 8th, 2025. What do we got coming up? Okay, creating an enemy to unite people under a cause. Think about that, guys. Start using that. Okay, guilt or shame, making dissenters feel morally or socially inferior. They did that through COVID, and they did that in their other agendas as part of their social conditioning programs. So a lot of men were made to feel socially inferior if they didn't take up a particular point of view. It happened with other things as well, so I don't want to get into it too much, but it definitely aided in that agenda. Isolation and echo chambers, okay, segregating opposing viewpoints, limiting exposure to alternative perspectives. We saw that in COVID, and we've seen it in the other agendas. Now, I guess if you've woken up again in 2020, it's very hard because now you've seen this, but I want you to go back in time and start looking at some of the other narratives that were thrown about. Like, think about how we've changed from what we were, say, in the 1950s, how we behaved, how we think, what was socially acceptable, what's socially acceptable now, what's normal, what's considered normal. Just start thinking about all these things before we get in the series. Echo chambers, algorithms or media systems that reinforce a single narrative. They've been happening for a long time. Deplatforming dissent, marginalizing or silencing opposing voices. I tell you, ChatGPT has given us the COVID-19 rollout plan. Gradual normalization, overton window shifting, slowly redefining what is considered acceptable or normal, new normal, right? Incremental policy changes, introducing small changes to over time to avoid backlash. Now that's what they're doing now. With they've gone from COVID-19 was bam, it was pretty full on, but now they've gone the slow route and they're slowly releasing things like digital ID, CBDCs, things like that. Control of culture and symbols, rewriting or reframing history. So I just mentioned that, erasing or altering the past to control the future narrative, and it's been done. Use of celebrities or respected figures. Okay, so there's a whole bunch here that they've used in COVID. I'll just quickly read through the last few. Symbolic language or rituals, creating shared identity through flags, slogans, or ceremonies. So this is more right-wing stuff that you can get sucked into as well. Okay, you can be controlled from either way. Psychological and social pressure, peer pressure, and groupthink. Now, groupthink, encouraging conformity by rewarding agreement and punishing dissent. Now, groupthink is massive in this movement at this point in time still, sadly to say. You know, I'll give you guys an example of the groupthink that I see. And there's only truly a few that actually are really truthers and thinkers. So electric vehicles is a good one. Okay, everybody in the movement has jumped onto the groupthink that electric vehicles are bad because somebody said it somewhere. Someone in the movement said it. Who knows where it came from? But I see this in the movement all the time. This one thing comes down, everyone just jumps on the bandwagon, right? Now, I was talking to a friend of mine, Iman, and he might watch this video, say, hey mate, how you going? And I share the same belief as him. The electric vehicle is actually a very valuable tool to have where we're going. When you start reading the environment, where you might have fuel shortages, no access to fuel. The electric vehicle, and this is what the groupthink is no, they control us through the electric vehicle, and the people can't get over that. Here's the reality. You pull out those computer systems, the communications in them that are connecting to internet and giving your data away, beautiful. You now have a perpetual vehicle as long as you have a solar system, right? That you can run whether there's fuel around or no fuel. You're independent. You're off you're off the system. Okay? That's a massive example of groupthink within this movement. Okay, hero, villain, archetypes, framing individuals or groups as saviors or threats. Right? Now we can see that, and we can see the threats that they're framing. Okay, 28th of the 8th, 2025. We just had the police shooting in Victoria, so certain threats are being framed. Okay, and we can see certain saviors. Okay, I'm not gonna say anything about that, but start thinking. Okay, manufactured crisis. Okay, creating or exaggerating emergencies to justify control. Okay, it's happening right now. People think there's some emergency with something else, but it's not. Reward and punishment systems, incentivizing compliance, financial benefits, privileges, or praise for going along. Okay, COVID-19 rollout. Punishing dissent, loss of status, opportunities, or even legal consequences for non-compliance. Definitely in COVID-19 vaccine rollout, yeah, we could apply that. But I can think about it in many of the other isms beforehand. Many of the other ideologies were such that you wouldn't be able to maintain your status in a company if you didn't accept this particular ideology, and we can see it through workplaces now throughout this country and probably in America and everywhere else, that if you don't accept some of these ideas, you are basically not going to get your promotions and things like that. Okay, now don't get me wrong, I'm not jumping on the, I'm not right wing or left wing. Okay, and I put that video out there previously about reverse psychology and what they're doing to end up with a, it's going to be a left wing New World Order. It's communism, that's left wing. Okay, but they're going to use right wing to make us accept that by making extreme right wing events and control and etc. And that's what's going on now. So that in the end they can implement the left. Technological influence is the last one. Algorithmic manipulation, social media feeds and search results that guide opinion. Surveillance, making people feel watched or self-censored, deep fakes and AI narratives. So that's a wrap, guys. I've covered pretty much most of the methods I believe they use. Ultimately, they use tapping into people's belief systems and planting beliefs into people's minds and planting ideologies that effectively will sort of fester on which way they lean, left or right, and then they get sucked into those ideologies, and then they use this notion of your belief is a part of your self-valuation system, which then makes it very hard to change, even when you're presented with evidence. I didn't talk much about cognitive dissonance, and that's something to probably think about as well. Cognitive dissonance is a massive problem inside this movement, where we've got people that are simply seeing certain ideas and they won't let go of them because the reality is just too painful. It's too painful, so they've latched on to these alter realities. Okay, and I will talk about them one by one. I call some of these realities death cults, all right, because they effectively are seeing people sit there, do nothing while they're under attack, basically, and they've jumped onto holding on to these ideologies that say such and such is going to happen, so you don't need to do anything. And then we've got these other things that are happening that people are stuck onto. I'll talk about that because of the cognitive dissonance. So guys, thanks for joining. It was a long chat. I hope it gave you guys some ideas. I hope you made it to the end. I hope you beat what they want you to be, which is somebody with a short attention span and no time to do things, no time to watch. So start, please, not for my sake, but for all of our sake, start taking up the inner strength, integrity, and courage to objectively self-evaluate. And objectively means you look at it from a pure point of view that's not tainted with your previous beliefs. Okay, look into yourself, self-evaluate. What areas might I still be hanging on to because they give me a false sense of strength, a false sense of power, a false sense of comfort or pleasure or financial gain. Okay, so thanks for joining, guys. I appreciate your time again, and if you like the videos, jump onto the YouTube channel while you can, while I'm still around on YouTube, because if we get a digital ID, I'm out. That's why I'm smashing out all these videos now. And also share it, guys. I'm getting shadow banned. I'm getting smashed on Facebook and pretty much everywhere. Okay, YouTube, everywhere. And if you think it's a good video that you think you might want to share with your friends, please do. Because, yeah, like I said, I'm getting shadow banned. Now, that also tells me that what I'm discussing and what Guardians of Freedom is doing, we're on the right path. That's why we're getting heavily shadow banned. And other guys out there that say they're getting shadow banned, they're not really, because if you look at their likes and everything else, poof, it's in the hundreds. And there's a lot of fake shadow banners who say they're shadow banned. That's another topic. So guys, the first topic I'm going to be covering is a video I'm going to call the ego age, because that's the age we live in now. It's the age of the ego. So hang out for that. I'm going to try and get that out in the next day or two. Thank you guys for tuning in. Appreciate it. Stay well out there. Look after yourselves. Look after each other. And I'll talk to you guys soon.